Welcome to Finding Humans in Tech, where we uncover the extraordinary stories behind the technology shaping our world. This isn't just about innovation. It's about the people, the dreamers, the doers, and the change makers, whose journeys remind us that humanity is the soul of every breakthrough. Get ready to be inspired, to connect, and to celebrate the resilience and passion that drive the tech community forward. Let's dive into the stories that prove technology is nothing without the humans behind it. This is the story of Saqiba Durrani, a spirited educator and IT specialist from Pakistan, who is paving the way for women empowerment and equality with her relentless work in the education sector. In the enthralling Arabian folk tales, there are several mentions of peri or pari, the Western equivalent of fairies. Such a doe-eyed pari had attended this cybersecurity discussion forum and enchanted half the attendees with her knowledge and wit. There is a saying that people walk into our lives not by chance but for a reason. Such is the story of our next human in the series, Saqiba Durrani, a motivated educationist, IT specialist, and cybersecurity system researcher from the foothills of the Himalayas at AJK in Pakistan. She glided into our lives and left us completely in awe of her existence. Some people just have that charm to affect people's lives. Her name in Urdu translates to a luminous source, and she wasn't far from her namesake. This spirited young woman is not your run-of-the-mill technologist. She has contributed far greater to her community and homeland than most of us could ever fathom. From an IT specialist to a cybersecurity researcher, she has dabbled in various domains. She recently returned to her alma mater as the new vice principal, illuminating the cause of women's rights and equality in education for ages, and shining her radiant light on a path that few dare to tread on. A Jesuit scholar and professor we had at university had this penchant for Persian poems, and he would narrate some famous lines from his battered, hanging by a thread notebook that was as old as time. He had introduced us to these famous Persian lines written by the ancient poet Amir Khusrau. Garfirdaus baru ezamin ast hamin asto hamin asto hamin ast. If there is a paradise on earth, it is here. It is here. It is here. If there were a word to describe Saqiba's hometown, it would be Firdaus or paradise. The small town of Hajira lies close to the LOC, line of control, that strategically divides the Pakistani and Indian administered Kashmir. There were periods of unrest considering its geographical location, but the town has found its own identity amidst the geopolitics it is surrounded by. She fondly recalls her childhood memories of playing around scenic valleys and riverbanks surrounding the picturesque Hajira. Kudrat, nature, has indeed blessed Kashmir. She would breathe and say, Zameen pe Jannat, heaven on earth, and this was what her homeland had been known as since time immemorial. Innumerable poems, books, and songs have been composed and dedicated to this paradise that has remained unblemished by the outside world for years. As expected, the technological boom indeed reached the idyllic town only in the late 2000s. She vividly recalls seeing her first mobile device during the 2005 Himalayan earthquake while she was in the 9th grade. She and her schoolmates had rushed to the emergency camps set up on the nearby grounds to seek shelter and medical aid. The quaint little town had been developing at its own pace. This continued until a few educationists and reformers wanted to bring change to their sleepy town. She recalls her dear principal, Miss Tazim Akhtar, moving heaven and earth together to bring quality education on par with the rest of the country to her hometown. The visionary Miss Akhtar introduced new subjects to the very outdated school curriculum and successfully charted a path to bring about educational reform. She recalls how it was through her efforts that computer science as a subject was introduced for the first time in the school syllabus. It paved the way for young girls like Saqiba to break the norm and eventually become the vice principal of the school. When the subject of computer science was introduced in her classwork, she fondly recalls one of her favorite teachers, Mr. Shahid Amir's class on C programming. In 11th grade, there was an illustration with the word information technology that caught her attention in her computer science book, and it was all she could daydream of. After she saw the list of subjects she could choose from for her graduation, everything made sense. She finally realized how IT could be a great career option, and she toyed with the idea for the longest time, but was hesitant to get her family's opinion on it. She laments and describes how most people would often say, "ये कंप्यूटर वगैरह पढ़ने से कुछ नहीं होगा, डॉक्टर बनो या आर्मी में जाओ. There's no point in studying computer science. Why don't you become a doctor or join the army instead?" The quaint little town, untouched by the technological revolution happening across the globe, still had to wake up to the opportunities provided by the tech domain. Most people wanted to pursue a noble profession in the medical field, or to serve their mulk country by joining the army. And here was a bright young girl trying to gather her courage to tell her family what she wanted to pursue against all norms set up by the people around her. We were all on the edge of our seats when she paused to check on us. Sensing our anticipation, she chuckles and reassures us that the story did have a happy ending. She gathered her courage to face her family and tell them of her plans to pursue higher education in the technological domain. She proudly tells me how her Abu father gave his consent immediately and complimented her with, "Ye ladki kuch naya karegi." This girl would do something new. The next day he bought her a computer. All I could see was how her father set a benchmark for all fathers to follow. Her Abu, the formidable Mr. Tariq Mahmood Durrani, paved the way for his daughter and a generation of daughters to come. Change indeed begins in our households. I see Mr. Durrani's strength and resolve in Saqiba's eyes whenever she utters "Mir Abu." She confesses that she could not be where she is today without the guidance and faith of her father in every step of her journey. It left us all moist-eyed, knowing how important it is sometimes for people to believe in your dreams. Saqiba's journey isn't just her own. It has been enabled by incredible and trailblazing parents, teachers, and mentors who relentlessly work each day for the greater good. Our journeys are never just our own, and she has shown us the importance of having a great support system to persevere through all odds. After she graduated from the University of Azad, Jammu, and Kashmir with exceptional grades, she recollects leaving her dear Abu and heading to the capital, Islamabad, for her post-graduation. She remembers the pangs of separation she felt staying miles away from home. The frequent calls to home were her only salvation in those initial days. Here at the National University of Sciences and Technology, NUEST, she found a support system that would heavily influence her life and work. The city changed her perception of the tech world, and she saw how the future lies in embracing the various technological changes that have been happening across domains. She laughs and adds that it did help that the internet speed was so much better in the capital. The gender inequality in the world of tech is no secret. I had to inquire how she tackled the challenges in her way. She remembers that only 20 women were in her class out of the 80 students who had signed up for a master's degree in information security. She found a sisterhood among her peers, and here was a bunch of motivated young women trying to break through a domain with few takers. The determination we see in her today was strengthened further by her encounter with some wonderful educational reformists and trailblazers at her university. The proficient Professor Samina Kozar, who brilliantly teaches database management systems, and the brilliant Professor Marine, who teaches cryptography, have all influenced her massively. These are some of the women working namelessly over at Islamabad, trying to change the narrative of the tech domain in their country. Mr. Adnan Arif Butt, an assistant professor who taught telecommunications at her university, was somebody who encouraged her to forge a path in the research domain. Her face lights up as she recollects the excellent classes these wonderful professors conducted. I am reminded of the Sufi quote: "The Sufi teacher's mission is to be in the service of those who can learn." These are the women whose stories would never reach us all. Yet they exist, inspiring an entire generation with their grit and determination, not just to change their narratives, but to break the shackles of stereotypes and strive. All of us have been wonder-eyed students at some stage in our lives. Some teachers inspire you. Some teachers transform you for the better. And some teachers just change the world you live in. And that's when I knew the student had indeed become the teacher, as I saw the same stardust in her eyes that she once must have seen in the eyes of her mentors. Having met such amazing groundbreakers and change makers, I inquired if their influence contributed to her decision to return to her hometown. She nods and tells me how she returned home and saw the changes that needed to happen around her. I asked her why she would return to a place that may not provide her with the same opportunities in Islamabad, with the skill sets she possesses. She told me patiently how her hometown still needed a lot of work and was determined to change people's views of technology. She would say, "Kisi ko to ye karna hai." Somebody's got to do it. She remembers that when she first joined the school as a computer science teacher, she had just one female student in her class who wanted to take up the course. Once the students saw how they could create diverse products using different programming languages, most of the kids in her school now wanted to pursue computer science as a career. The school saw an overwhelming response of students signing up to take computer classes, and even parents enlisting their children in the course. Seeing her enthusiasm and infectious energy, I can relate to how her kids must feel daily. The passion she exudes as she speaks about her students and school reminds me of how she must be carrying on the legacy passed down by such incredible men and women in Pakistan who are working each day in their capability to make their world a better place. I asked her what it would take to bring her country on par with the rest of the world. She instantly replies that there needs to be a reformation in the books taught in the schools. She envisions a change in the curriculum to fit the diverse technologies that have shaped our world. She happily tells me how parents nowadays encourage their children to learn computer science. In that brief silence, I could sense how her vision to open the tech world to the people around her has found its first sign of success. Our boundaries or our circumstances never mattered in the world of technology. Just the way she found her voice and independence through her love for computers and tech. She was now paving the way for young boys and girls to dream bigger and forge their own identities. Has it all been sunshine and hay in her life? She would nod her head and say, Bilkul nahi. Not at all. Her initial start in the industry saw her face many hurdles that tested her integrity and faith. But she wasn't one to bow down. She told me about one job opportunity that she was looking forward to, which she had to eventually refuse based on a dress code that dictated the workplace. The recruiter was willing to sign her up only if she would comply with the terms, and she recollects how she walked out of that interview with her head held high and her dignity in check. She didn't come that far to be judged based on her faith or her ethics. This brave young lady was determined to do things her own way. She told me she felt azad, freed. That was just one of the instances where she knew she would have to work harder each step of the way to make sure her skills could be something no one could judge. Her efforts and determination paid off when she was chosen to be a part of this prestigious research team that looked beyond what she represented and evaluated her simply based on her skill sets. The diverse team consisted of several young and old Pakistani technologists working together for their country and creating a product that could pave the way for development in the tech domain. It opened her eyes to what a healthy working environment could be like. She recalls how she grasped that she could not just do research work, which is her passion, but also serve her mulk through the technical skills she possesses. That paved the way for more freelancing work. And she agrees that the unfortunate encounter with that one testy recruiter did make her work harder for her dreams. That is also one of the reasons she feels so passionately about bringing more women into tech and bringing diversity to a space dominated heavily by one gender. She represents the new breed of young, talented Pakistanis thriving to change their narrative and setting foot in a domain that hasn't reached its full potential in their hometown. She grew up in a close-knit community that truly believes in faith in God, and it has been her source of strength and inspiration. She quoted me her favorite lines from the Quran, and I listened intently in awe of how beautiful these ancient verses sounded. She translates a few lines from the verse of Surah Al-Baqarah ayat 286. Allah does not burden any human being with a responsibility heavier than he can bear. It's been her guiding light through the hard times. And she chants me a couple more ancient verses. I marvel at the beauty of her words and the wisdom she possesses at such a young age. How true those verses were. What is the true meaning of life without overcoming turbulent times? She finally found her purpose by forging a career in research works on cryptography and cybersecurity, and paving the way for more young women to get into a field that has extraordinary pioneers like her. Spring is what she describes as her favorite time of the year. She paints a mental picture of a pristine flowing river and apricot blossoms and tells me how spring makes her family head out to these beautiful isolated spots to enjoy noon chai and her mom's roti sabji. She promises to make the famous salty noon chai for our team if we ever get to land in her jannat. Her chirpy, ethereal voice trails off as she bids us goodbye. Khuda Hafiz. It gives us hope for the future that such alluring souls still exist in the world around us. And she didn't just change our lives, but showed us, in the flesh and form, what believing in your dreams could look like. And that was the story of our beautiful Saqiba, who somewhere right now must be teaching loops and functions to a bunch of doe-eyed students, inspiring another whole new generation to come, and making us all fall in love with her all over again. Our Pari. As we wrap up this episode of Finding Humans in Tech, remember this. Behind every line of code, every groundbreaking innovation, and every bold idea is a human story, full of passion, resilience, and the courage to dream. These stories remind us that technology isn't just about machines. It's about the heartbeats that make them meaningful. Subscribe, like, and share our channel, and keep on joining us in this journey of discovery and connection. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep innovating, and always keep shining the light, always.